Multiple books spiking on the list this week, and Jem, I think it's your fault.
Don't look at me. Didn't you cause that other one to spike?
The hottest funny books in the world. You gotta know what they're going for because some of them are too cheap. I'm just saying it right now. Hit the like, slap the subscribe button, and let's look at number 10 with Hawkman number 4, the first appearance of Zatanna. Gemman, I think this is great spec.
Well, if you think back to late February, IGN made a poll asking their readers who they want to see in the new James Gunn DC universe, Zatanna being number 7 on that list, and then getting James Gunn to confirm that half of them would show up.
Let me know in the comment section below what you think, because I think there will be no surprise if we find out that James Gunn has a planner for Zatanna. A 3.5 sold for $475 this past week. That's a 10% increase when you compare it over the recent 12 months. The 4.0 is up 3%, selling for $505, and a record-breaking 9.0 sold this month. Last selling in 2018 for $2,900, up 16%, now selling for $3,360.
And to show the potential of where this book can go by taking another popular character from around a similar time, let's take a look at Detective Comics 359, the first appearance of Batgirl.
Zatanna's technically even a little older, coming out about 3 years before Batgirl, but Barbara Gordon and Zatanna are both great spec. When you look at a 3.0 detective, that goes for $528 compared to Zatanna at $412. A 6.0 detective goes for $1,000. Zatanna, $720. Pretty close, but we're going to see some drastic changes as we go up this grade count.
When you get to the 8.5, Barbara takes the lead by more than double, selling for $42.23 versus $20.60. The 9.2 goes for $9,600 for the first appearance of Batgirl, whereas Zatanna is just $5,400, and in 9.6, that Tech 359 goes for $78,000 versus the $11,400 that the first appearance of Zatanna goes for.
Make sure to download the best comic app in existence. You get access to all of this data prior to when we hit the mic. It's what we use to make all of our videos and learn and keep up about all funny books. It's called Key Collector Comics. Use code TOM101. You support the show, but it also unlocks a free 2-week subscription of the app in its entirety. But as much as like 98% of the app is free. To catalog your comics, get suggested pricing, and so much more.
Use the code for the free 2 weeks, but you're going to want to download that app in its entirety. It'll give you access to key alerts and the spec deck to make you more savvy on the hunt.
Number 9 on the list is one of the greatest comic books of all time. Alan Moore goodness, Watchmen number 1. San Diego Comic-Con announcement that not only we're getting a JLA Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movie, we're also going to get a Watchmen, hopefully comic accurate adaptation.
Well, the Zack Snyder movie was pretty comic accurate, but they did change the entire ending. A CGC 7.5 is up 20%, selling for $65. The 9.2 is up 28%. The 9.6 sold for $254, which is 62% above its 12-month average, and 2 copies outsold the average this week. And then we got the 9.8, selling for $925, 42% above average.
A 9.8 used to sell for $650 on average this past year. Seeing it creep up to the $1,000 mark hasn't happened in some time. The heights were reached back in October 2021, where it sold for $1,375. And this book is one of a few that have graduated from the recent trending list to now the Hot 10 list this week.
Number 8 on the list is a book we already talked about, Detective Comics 359 from 1967, the first appearance of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl.
Same reasons why we were chatting about Zatanna earlier on the list. We have a 2.0 selling for $372, an increase of 7%. The 4.0 sold for $639, an increase of 7%. And the 5.5 is selling for $975, approaching that $1,000 marker for the first time in over a year, up 12%. And it didn't stop there. We got a record-breaking sale.
And that's in a CGC 9.2. The last time it broke record, it sold for $7,245, and that was March of this year. It's up 33% now, selling for $9,600.
The spec is all coming from the Brave and the Bold movie, and we know that that's going to be focused on the Bat family. And it's interesting to see that Red Hood was on that IGN poll earlier, but that's the only member of the family that we've talked about. Barbara Gordon, nowhere to be found. And what about Damian Wayne, who's already confirmed?
It's crazy to see Batgirl on this list and spec about her potentially being in the Brave and the Bold movie when they made a whole Batgirl movie that got shelved.
Number 7 on the list is Batman 181, the first appearance of Poison Ivy. Back in 2020, when Gemma and I started doing the Hot 10, which we've done every single week ever since, hit the subscribe button, this was one of the very first books that started the comic boom. It consisted of only 4 9/8s that existed on the census, and 1 broke record at $90,000. And that record was beat this week.
That's right. Before we get into it, though, let's talk about the CGC 3.0. It sold for $550 for an increase of 25% over its 12-month average. The 3.5 can't even keep up. It sold for $500, but still put it above the 12-month average. And then the 5.5 selling for $1,070, 18% above average.
That 9.8 record setter was $90,000 in 2020. This last week, a $96,000 sale for an increase of 7% in a market that's being described as down in an adjustment period.
Since that 90K sale set off the comic boom, could this be the resurgence?
Number 6 on the list is House of Secrets, number 92, the first appearance of Swamp Thing. This book just broke record in low grade and incomplete.
DC totally dominating the first half of this list. I mean, the first appearance of Poison Ivy. We know that there's some slight interest to see her on screen, and we know Swamp Thing is coming. A 3.0 sold for $865, 20% above average. The 6.5 is up 5%. The 9.0 is up 2%. And then we got that 0.5 with the back cover missing, selling for $253 last September. It just broke records, selling for $550 for a 117% increase. And then we got a 1.5, which last broke records, selling for $515 in the comic boom in 2020, up 12%, now selling for $575.
Some very interesting news about actors that I'm a big fan of. Brothers. We have Bill Skarsgård, who portrayed Pennywise in It, as well as Alex Skarsgård, who portrayed Eric in True Blood. Shout out Lafayette. He also did a great rendition of Tarzan. I digress, because both actors were rumored to have auditioned for the role of Lex Luthor. Bill Skarsgård, rumors that he didn't get the role, but is now being looked at seriously to take on the role of Swamp Thing. Could you imagine? Because if this happens, I think Swamp Thing just elevated. This could be the news that this book needed to spike even more than it has been.
No, it sounds like they're finally going to give Swamp Thing the respect that he deserves. Moving on to number 5, Marvel finally showing up with ASM 41, the Rhino, back on the list.
We've seen the trailers ever since the announcement that this movie would be rated R, hyper-violent, Aaron Taylor Johnson running around on all fours. This book spiked up and has repeatedly hit the Hot 10 week over week, multiple times over the last couple months. And across the board, we are seeing an interest in lower and higher grade copies. The 3.5 hit 340, an increase of 15%. The 4.0 hit 385, an increase of 10%. The 5.5 hit 510, an increase of 2%. The 6.0 hit 677, an increase of 21%. The 7.0 is selling for $854, and the 8.0 sold for $1440. That's an increase of 4%.
ASM 41 is moving, and it's tough and high grade. There are 45 more slabs on the census since we talked about this book when it hit number 4 on July 17th, and there have been none in grades 9.0 to 9.8. We got a record-breaking sale for a 7.5, last breaking record in 2021 where it sold for $1,441. Breaking record now, selling for 4% more at $1,500.
This week, I'm heading on a plane to Toronto Fan Expo, and I want to reveal one of a few exclusives that I have up my sleeve. This right here is a boys #1, John Royal, Starlight, and Queen Maeve cover. I'm going to be releasing this with Davis Ryder all weekend long, and we have a lot of other fun things that we're going to be bringing to the best new app to buy and sell collectibles. Use the link in the description before you head over there. If it's your first purchase, you get a $10 credit after your purchase of $10 or more.
Number 4 on the list, Tom, this one's all your fault. We got Star Wars issue 43, the first appearance of Lando.
This book landed at number 1 on the trending list weeks ago after it was announced that the Lando series would be written and starred by Donald Glover, but not just Donald, his brother as well. This right here looked like great spec because the book is selling for so damn cheap. Too cheap, I'm hunting for it.
The record high for a 9.8 is $1,200. Just marinate on that as we go over these recent sales. The 9.2 sold for $66, which is 5% above its 12-month average. 3 copies outsold that average this week. The 9.4 is up 35%, the 9.6 is up 77%, and 4 copies broke that average.
And that brings us to the 9.8. Why I'm excited about this book. Recently selling for $330. And wait, that sounds low, but that's above average. This book could have been purchased for $294 all year long. That's an increase of 12%. The last GPA sale clocked in at $400. So yes, it's on the upswing, but I still think it's low. This is a major Star Wars book. And by the way, where's Thrawn? Where's Ahsoka? Where's Ezra? We're so close to the Ahsoka show. And the only Star Wars book on the list this week, spoiler, is Lando.
Apparently, a lot of people are thinking the same as you, as there were 7 copies that outsold the average this week. And then we have the newsstand 9.8 that sold for $1 shy of $500, 22% above average, and 2 copies broke the average.
Number 3 on the list. I couldn't believe it, Jem. I think you're to blame about this one. Incredible Hulk 340, McFarlane cover, and noted as one of the most popular, greatest comic covers of all time.
We got a chance to meet Todd McFarlane at San Diego Comic-Con and ask him a question. And I asked him what were the top 5 comics that he was signing over the weekend, Hulk 340 being one of them. But wait a minute, he also said Spawn 1, Spider-Man 1, Batman 423, and those didn't show up on the list.
I still blame you, Jem. The 8.0 selling for $185. That's an increase of 20%. The newsstand, look out for that barcode, 9.0 is selling for $250 for an increase of 5%. The 9.4 is selling for $310 for an increase of 20%. The 9.6 sold for $422. That's an increase of 3%. And the newsstand 9.8 just sold for $4,000. That's an increase of 6%. Hot damn.
You know why I think this has more to do with Deadpool 3 than it does to do with me?
Why, Jem? I want to hear you get out of this one.
Because number 2 on the list is Wolverine number 1, the Frank Miller first ongoing series for Wolverine, which, by the way, we did find a CGC 9.8 and give it away over on Whatnot, man. You guys got to make sure to follow me over there as well.
Yo, I like what you're doing. You're basically hitting the convention floor, using the Hot 10 and recent Hot 10s as your hunting list, and then just giving away fire.
I'm trying to buy books that are on the Hot 10 and get them for less than what we're reporting on, but that's been kind of difficult.
Well, we do have the first solo series on a classic cover that's selling for such an affordable amount, in my opinion. And so much of this list is about like long-term DCU spec, and with the short-term looking so cloudy in regards to the writers and actors strike, Deadpool has been on the minds of speculators and investors. And the top of this Hot 10, number 2 and 1 included, prove it.
The CGC 9.4 selling for $235 puts it 26% above its 12-month average. The 9.6 selling for $407. That's 50% higher, and 3 copies outsold the average. And then we got the 9.8. The direct market edition sold for $700, 2% up, and the newsstand sold for $1,650, which is 29% above average.
We were telling you that this book seemed way too low when it was hovering around the $600 marker. Now it's hitting $700. The heights this book reached back in 2021 was $1,365. When do you think is the price to buy this book at? Because I'm getting FOMO.
That's a good question, because it seems like as we get closer to Deadpool 3, there are more and more rumors of characters who should appear in the movie. We've heard about the original X-Men team reappearing. We've heard about Halle Berry as Storm, but we got some new ones reported on just recently.
Now, this is all rumors. None of it is confirmed, but this list, this leak was vast. We have Channing Tatum as Gambit making that list, Ben Affleck as Daredevil, Taylor Swift, not as Lady Deadpool, but as Dazzler, which makes way more sense considering she's a pop star.
We're hearing Taron Egerton from Kingsman playing a different version of Wolverine. We've got Julian McMahon reprising his role as Dr. Doom from the original Fantastic Four movies.
Sir Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, no surprise. I'm all in. This right here is why this book is piping hot, and why the number 1 hottest book in the world is New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool.
I wanted to get this one in a 9.8 to do a giveaway on Whatnot, but it's just too expensive, and we got a ton of sales to report on. The 7.0 sold for $300, 12% above average. The 8.0 is 4% above. The 9.0 sold for $403, 12% above average, and 3 copies outsold the average.
The 9.2 sold for $395, can't keep up for a 1% increase. Then we got some newsstands to report on. The 9.2, look out for the barcode, sold for $500 for an increase of 18%, and 2 different copies outsold that average. Then we got a newsstand 9.4 selling for $615, an increase of 22%, and 2 copies outsold that average. Then we have the direct 9.6 selling for $699. That's an increase of 20%, and a staggering 5 copies outsold that average this past week.
And what I tell you about the 9.8s, too expensive, selling for $1,900, 25% above average, and 3 copies outsold the average this week.
Last week, we reported on CGC being behind on grades because we track all the census increases week over week, and there was like nothing to update for weeks since San Diego Comic-Con, likely because they got really busy. Well, this past week, we see an increase of 104 slabs added to that census count, 20 of which being a 9.8. So should you spend $2K on a New Mutants 98 graded at a 9.8 right now? I think not. Especially if you're patient, you can get this book for closer to the $1,500 marker. The last GPA recorded sale was $1,475. Hit the like, slap the subscribe button, and as always,
Geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said.